Many years ago, in the noisy part of Onitsha main market, where traders shouted at customers like soldiers shouting commands in a battlefield, there was one shop that everybody respected and feared at the same time. This shop was Nikki Shoes and More, owned by the famous Nikki the Shoe Boss, also known as Madame Nkema Konam, the Queen of Italian Heels. Her shop stood like a palace among ordinary kiosks, and it shone so brightly with glass doors and shining tiles that even the sun used to adjust itself before reflecting on the shop, because the place looked like where heaven and boutique got married and gave birth to something beautiful. People said the tiles alone could blind somebody's future if they walked barefoot on it. Even her signboard was so fine that other shop owners hissed every morning because the brightness from there kept overshadowing their own dull, faded signboards. Nikki, the CEO, was who she said she was. She would come to the shop every day wearing a new long straight hair that touched her waist, eyelashes that looked like broom, and she always walked like someone whose legs were sponsored by angels. She dressed in expensive outfits, wore high heels taller than some people's destiny, and she drove a Mercedes-Benz that always made children scream, "Auntie, buy me biscuits." Women shouted, "God, when?" while the men would squeeze their face in jealousy because even their entire salary could not buy one tire of Nikki's car. Everybody admired her because they all knew how she rose from selling flat slippers beside the gutter to being the most powerful shoe seller in the whole market. Nobody could understand how it happened because people who knew her before said she once trekked from Onitsha to Oka just because she could not afford transport. Some said she used to sleep in an abandoned store and bathe with rainwater. But now she was sponsoring people abroad and doing giveaway online like government sharing palliative. The market women who had master's degree in gossiping used to gather and gossip every afternoon because nobody can beat them. They would sit fanning themselves with nylon bags and stats. "My sister, any success that is too sharp should fear you. Ordinary 2 years promotion. Nikki is now driving a tear rubber car. Even politicians don't rise like that." Another woman would say, "That is true. Where did she see the money from? Even Dangote did not blow like this." Someone else would reply, "Mind your mouth, oh. If breeze blow now, your wig will fly and you fly with it." However, despite the gossip, they all secretly wanted to be like her. Every day, customers rushed into her shop like bees rushing honey because she had the finest shoes from Italy, Spain, Turkey, China, and even a country nobody could pronounce properly. Instagram girls would even take pictures inside her shop and post, "Soft life only, no stress." People used to joke that if you hadn't taken a selfie inside Nikki's shoes before, you had not arrived in life. But something strange began to happen, something nobody understood. People noticed that whoever tested shoes inside Nikki's shop always looked tired the next day, as if they trekked from Lagos to Maiduguri. A banker named Madam Sheila once came to buy shoes and she said she only wore the heel for 2 minutes, but that same night, she dreamt that she was walking alone in a dry wilderness with sand blowing in her eyes. She was crying and shouting, "Help me!" But nobody answered, and when she woke up, her legs were paining her as if she fought 12 rounds with Anthony Joshua. She dragged herself to walk like someone whose spirit left her body to go and buy akara without permission. 2 weeks later, she lost her job and her landlord locked her gates after seizing her mattress and blender. Now, she treks to sell puff-puff for survival. Yet, she still didn't understand how her life suddenly turned upside down. Another man, Uncle Collins, a big boy who used to pepper people with his Lexus, bought expensive loafers from Nikki and started posting pictures on Instagram with captions like, "Soft life no be your mates. But shortly after, he had the same wilderness dream and woke up sweating like boiled yam. 2 weeks later, his car engine knocked. Police seized his documents and he ended up trekking to work like someone running away from poverty demons. People laughed and said it was his village people that were responsible. But one old woman selling tomatoes muttered, every leg wey enter that shop, something they follow am go house. Yet, nobody listened to her because the shop was too beautiful to suspect evil. Meanwhile, Nikki smiled every day as her wealth increased. Her shop expanded from 1 section to 3, and her staff wore uniforms like flight attendants. She even thought of opening new branches, while others closed theirs, crying that the market was hard. For a long time, life was good for Nikki, and she felt unstoppable until the day trouble came in to buy shoes from her. One hot Saturday afternoon, a lady called Chizaram and her best friend Amarachi decided to go and buy wedding shoes from Nikki Shoes and More. Amarachi was getting married in 2 months and she wanted a high heels that would make her look taller than everybody, so that when she walked into the reception, people would admire her and say, "See fine girl, see fine shoe." They arrived at Nikki's shop sweating really hard because they came from a long walk after the keke man dropped them far from the market claiming no change, abeg manage. When they stepped inside, the cold air from the AC hit them like the breath of heaven, and they almost fell to the floor in happiness. The shop looked even more beautiful than Instagram had shown, and the shoes were arranged like soldiers waiting for parade, shining and sparkling like diamonds. Amarachi's eyes almost fell out of her head. Cheesy, see life. This place is finer than all the pictures. If I don't buy wedding shoe from here, I will just cancel the whole marriage, I swear. Chizaram rolled her eyes. Abeg, don't talk nonsense. Wedding no be shoe competition. We came to buy within our budget and go. Remember, you still have decoration and photographer to pay. Amarachi waved her hand. My dear, leave talk. Wedding is once. I want to pepper people that day. They burst into laughter, and then one of the sales girl came forward and said sweetly, "Welcome to Nikki Shoes and More, the Palace of Queens. Please feel free to try anything you want." Chizaram was the first to pick a nearby slippers and slipped her foot into it. They both sat, and then the sales girl began to bring shoes with long heels that looked like spiritual ladders for climbing prayer mountains. Amarachi shouted, "Chai! If I wear this one, my husband will faint." She slipped her foot into the sparkling silver heel, and she stood up smiling like someone who just won a visa lottery. Everything looked perfect until her face suddenly changed. She blinked fast like someone trying to remove sand from her eye, and she held Chizaram's arm tightly. Chizzy, wait. Why is the room shaking? Chizaram frowned. Room? Which room? It is your destiny that is shaking. Stand where, Jaw? They laughed it off, but Chizaram soon noticed something strange. As Amarachi wore the shoe, shadows moved inside the mirror, and Chizaram felt a sharp cold breeze pass behind her, even though the AC was not blowing in that direction. The whole shop suddenly felt heavy, as if something was watching them. Then Nikki herself walked out from the inner office wearing an all-white jumpsuit and red lipstick that looked like it was painted with a ruler. She was smiling too perfectly, like somebody who rehearsed her smile for 3 hours. "Welcome, my queens. You look amazing. That shoe was made for you. Just look at yourself." Her voice was soft, but something inside it felt like it was crawling into Chizaram's chest and pressing her lungs. Chizaram quickly removed the slippers from her leg and pulled Amarachi to sit down. She whispered, "Remove that shoe now, I beg. Something is off about this place." Amarachi frowned. Which kind of village fear is this now? It's only a shoe. But at that exact moment, Chizaram's head became light, as if someone removed her brain and replaced it with a sponge. She saw a flash vision of Amarachi walking alone in a dry wilderness, barefoot, crying, and holding a torn wedding gown. Chizaram jumped and tried to pull her friend, but Amarachi insisted on buying the silver shoes before leaving. Nikki watched them silently and sharply like a razor. She muttered, "My dear, once your leg enters my shoe, the journey has already started." The way she said it sounded like a joke wearing designer perfume. Chizaram grabbed her friend's hands like a thief and they ran out of the shop with the shoes so fast that even the market women selling tomatoes dropped their baskets to watch. That night, Chizaram slept and began dreaming. She found herself walking in a dry wilderness barefoot. The sun was burning her head like pepper, and she was dressed in rags, holding the chains tied to her legs. She kept running and running like someone escaping the Nigerian police. But the more she ran, the more tired she became. People stood far away watching her like strangers in a stadium. Yet, nobody helped. She cried until her voice disappeared, and she woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, with her heart beating like a drum in a village festival. Her room felt like a graveyard. When she tried to stand, her legs shook like spaghetti soaked in hot water. And then, the next morning, everything shattered like a dropped glass. Her scholarship email came in and the news was bad. Funding cancelled. Her cousin called crying that he had been involved in an accident. She had to empty her account for him. Her phone screen cracked mysteriously by itself, and the remaining money in her bank app suddenly vanished. Then she remembered Nikki's words. She froze. Meanwhile, Amarachi, who actually bought the shoes, began suffering too. All her savings disappeared mysteriously. Her landlord threw her out and she started trekking everywhere like a spiritual punishment. Still, nobody understood what was happening. But Chizaram began to suspect that the problem started from that shoe shop. Every time she closed her eyes to sleep, she would see that same wilderness like a horror movie that refused to end. And she would wake up sweating as if she carried 50 kg of gari on her head. She tried to pray, but even prayer tasted like a bitter medicine because every time she shouted, "Blood of Jesus," her voice would crack like an old radio. Something was wrong, and she could feel it deep in her bones. Meanwhile, Amarachi's life scattered totally like gari poured inside a moving keke. Her fiancé Chima cancelled the wedding overnight, claiming he had a revelation that she was not his wife. Although many people knew the real revelation came when his eyes mistakenly saw her trekking under the sun with dusty feet and hair looking like a rejected sponge. When Amarachi's mother heard the news, she started crying. "Who loses a husband just like that, Amarachi? What did you step on? Who did you offend?" Amarachi wept bitterly. "Mama, I don't know. I didn't offend anyone." Her life became like a pepper soup without meat. As for Chizaram, she decided she needed answers. So she started asking questions secretly around the market like an undercover journalist. She was then directed to a young girl who used to work at Nikki's shop, a girl called Okrika. She was named Okrika because she looked like someone who came out from a bale of second-hand clothes. She was always wearing big slippers that didn't match her legs, and her eyes looked like she had seen ghosts frying yam in the moonlight. When Chizaram finally caught her behind the market buying akara, she held her hand and said, "I need to ask you something about Nikki's shop. Please don't shout, just nod if you understand." The girl looked around like someone being chased by spiritual Wi-Fi signal and said, "Please leave me alone. If they see me talking to you, they will finish me. I escaped death to be alive. Forget that place. That shop is not ordinary." Immediately, Chizaram's heart jumped like a frog in cold water. Please, tell me what is happening. My life is scattering and my friend almost died. We need to know the truth. Okrika frowned, looked around and whispered, Madam Nikki's success is not normal. Every midnight at 2 a.m., she goes to a secret room in the shop. She carries selected shoes, washes them with blood and palm wine, and she chants something in a strange language. Lives are tied to those shoes. Once your feet enter any of them, your destiny begins to work for her. Chizaram's legs felt weak instantly. Blood? Blood of who? The blood of anyone the charm requires. The first time I saw it, it was chicken. The next time, it was goats. The last night before I ran away, it looked like a small coffin. I didn't wait to check. I just ran. Chizaram couldn't believe her ears. Okrika continued talking. All the nightmares people have, that wilderness, they are going to pay with their destiny. When you cry in that dream, your blessings are taken and transferred to Nikki. That is why she keeps getting richer and people who buy shoes from her become broke. Chizaram was shaking like a generator wire. So, that is why Amarachi is trekking everywhere like someone whose shoes were stolen by witches? Okrika nodded. Once you step into the shoe, your spiritual leg enters an agreement. Buying it means you sign the contract. Not buying it does not cancel it though. The contract begins from the moment you wear it. Chizaram wanted to scream, but fear locked her voice. Okrika explained everything she knew. She said Nikki was once a hopeless poor girl, sleeping under Onitsha Bridge, begging for leftover food and washing buses for a living. One rainy night, she met a strange old shoemaker woman named Mama Nwugo, who sold handmade leather shoes. People said Mama Nwugo was not ordinary. She never smiled or talked to anyone, and her eyes were always red like fresh pepper. One evening, Mama Nwugo died mysteriously, and the next morning, Nikki appeared driving a second-hand Toyota. She took over the shop and suddenly became rich beyond explanation. People said that Nikki made a covenant of exchange, promising to supply working destinies in return for wealth. Okrika shook her head sadly. She turned the shop into a spiritual factory. Every foot that enters gives her another blessing. Every dream in that wilderness is a spiritual journey where destinies are being exchanged. Chizaram covered her mouth. She was crying by now. So, what do we do? Can we break the covenant? Okrika shook her head. I don't know, but I know someone else who worked there before me. Someone who carried the real secret. Nikki's younger brother. Chizaram's eyes opened wide. Okrika continued. His name is Uchenna and he hates everything about that shop. He almost died trying to destroy something buried under the floor. Chizaram squinted. Buried? Under the shop floor? What is it? Okrika's voice trembled. A charm inside a leather shoe, tied with chains and names, and pictures of customers too. It is the heart of her power. If that shoe is not destroyed, more destinies will fall. At that moment, a shadow passed quickly behind them like someone running without a feet. Okrika jumped up suddenly. Please, don't tell anyone we spoke. If she finds out, I am finished. She ran away, leaving her akara and pure water on the floor. Chizaram stood frozen. She now knew that she and Amarachi had entered a bigger problem. And if she did not move fast, they would be finished. They would become permanent tenants in suffering. That was the day Chizaram decided she would fight Nikki and take back their destiny, even if it meant confronting darkness face to face. Meanwhile, Amarachi's condition became worse. She grew so thin that her cheekbones could grate coconuts, and people in the neighborhood started avoiding her because she looked like somebody whose shadow had lost weight. She cried every night, begging God for mercy, until her tears finished and only hiccups remained. When Chizaram told her about the mystery behind Nikki's shoes, she froze. Chizzy, I don't understand anything again, oh. How can wedding shoe turn my life into obituary? If I had known, I would have worn bedroom slippers for the wedding now and used threads to tie it like village children. God, why me? Chizaram frowned. Stop crying, abeg. If you cry too much, your destiny will melt finish. I think I know how to fight this thing. Amarachi looked at her unbelievably. Fight? Fight who? Nikki, hey, from what you just explained, that woman looks like who eats people for breakfast. Chizaram swallowed hard because even though she was afraid, she couldn't watch her best friend die in suffering like a goat that fell inside well. And so, the very next day, she followed the clue Okrika gave her and started searching for Uchenna, Nikki's younger brother. She asked around the market and found someone who said Uchenna now worked as an electrician in the outskirts of town. She took a keke and went there sweating and hoping for a solution. When she reached his workshop, she saw a slim young man with tired eyes and bandage wrapped around his hand. He looked like someone who had wrestled with thunder and survived. Chizaram asked, "Are you Uchenna? Please, I need your help. It's about your sister Nikki." Immediately, his face changed like someone who tasted bitter herbs. "Please, don't call me her brother. That woman is not my sister again. I cut family ties spiritually and physically with her. If she hears my name near her business, lightning will strike both of us. Go home before you die." Chizaram pleaded, "I can't go. She has destroyed my friend's life and she's about to destroy mine too." She told him everything about Amarachi's collapsed life, the wilderness dreams, the nightmare every night, Okrika confessions, everything. Uchenna held his head with both hands and paced like a madman. "I tried to stop her 2 years ago. I saw something buried under the shop floor, a leather shoe filled with chains tied to people's pictures. I tried to destroy it, but that night I woke up inside a gutter, half dead, unable to talk for 3 weeks. And then she warned me that if I ever tried it again, I wouldn't wake up alive." Chizaram pleaded, "We need to destroy that thing, please. It is killing people every day." Uchenna shook his head violently. "It is not that easy. That charm is protected by different spirits. Even pastors fear to pray about it. 2 pastors tried. One ran mad for 10 minutes and recovered without his memory. The other one stopped being a pastor and opened a beer parlor." Chizaram almost fainted. "But there must be a way. Please think." Uchenna looked at her for a long time and sighed deeply. "I think there is only one way. We need people whose destinies were already tied to that charm. Those people have spiritual access. If they gather and confront the altar with fire at midnight, maybe the charm will break." Chizaram nodded. "Victims? All right. I will gather them. I will look for them." Uchenna warned, "You need to be ready. The moment we begin, she will know. Spirits don't sleep." Without wasting time, Chizaram began calling and searching for victims around the market and the neighborhood. She found Madam Sheila, the banker who now sold puff puff. Uncle Collins, the once rich car owner who was now trekking and sweating like a roasted plantain. A woman called Ogugwa, whose business died immediately after she bought slippers from Nikki. A young bride whose wedding ended in disgrace. They gathered one night in Sheila's small compound, sitting on plastic chairs. Sheila spoke up first. "My life scattered since I bought that shoe. If I catch that woman, I will use my bare hands to pluck her eyelashes." Collins sighed sadly. "I want my destiny back. I am tired of trekking like spiritual punishment." Ogugwa suggested, "Let us fight her. If we die, at least we die together." Amarachi was there too, looking weak and shivering like someone whose spirits wanted to run away. They decided they would rise up against Nikki and her powers. The next morning, they tried reporting to the police, but the police officer laughed at them. "Madam, are you hearing yourself? You said shoe is stealing destiny. How is that possible? Do you want us to arrest footwears? Please, don't come here and insult police intelligence." They tried the church next. 3 pastors prayed for them, but all 3 collapsed like phones with low battery. The first pastor woke up shouting, "Don't mention that name near me again." The second pastor began prophesying rubbish like someone speaking WhatsApp autocorrects. Pastor 3 vomited and ran out of the church barefoot. It became clear that no human arm could solve this. That evening, while everyone was talking about their strategy, Amarachi screamed and fell to the ground. Her body began to shake uncontrollably and foam appeared on her lips. They ran to hold her. Amarachi called out in a weak voice, "Chizzy, please, don't let me die. I am tired." Chizaram held her. "You will not die. I swear on my life, we will break this thing tonight." And that night, the group prepared to storm Nikki's shoes and more at midnight. When the clock struck 11:30 p.m., the night felt different, heavy and angry, as if the sky was holding its breath, waiting for trouble. The street was quiet. Even the normal generator noise had disappeared. Chizaram and the others stood ready, shaking but determined because suffering had already beaten fear out of them. Amarachi could barely walk, so Collins carried her on his back. Madam Sheila held a lantern and kept praying in tongues that sounded like someone arguing with demons over a phone call, while Ogugwa wore a helmet for protection, even though it looked like a useless decoration because if spirits slap helmets, it will pass through like Wi-Fi. Uchenna appeared from the dark wearing a black hoodie. His face was serious like somebody about to fight a transformer. He warned, "Once we enter, there is no turning back. If anybody runs, we will all die. We must stick together. Midnight is the gate hour between covenants. When the time hits 12 p.m., she will know we are here." Sheila scoffed. "If she likes, let her know. Let her also take attendance. I am tired of this trekking and puff-puff lifestyle." They moved quietly towards Nikki's shoes and more, and the moment they reached the glass entrance, the lights inside suddenly came on by themselves. Even though there was no lights in the whole street, the glass doors slid open slowly without anybody touching them. Everyone froze. Collins exclaimed, "Chai, this is how horror film starts." Ogugwa ordered, "Enter, Joe. Destiny will not fix itself. Move." They stepped inside and the entire shop looked different. It was no longer shining and beautiful like daytime. Now, it looked dark and suffocating like a funeral home mixed with evil perfume. The shoes that normally sparkled now looked like dead eyes staring at them from every shelf. Then the ground trembled like an earthquake and a loud voice echoed around the room like a microphone inside an empty tank. "Who dares enter my altar?" They all grabbed each other like soaked bread holding itself together. Uchenna signaled and they moved towards the center of the shop. He knelt down and started tearing the ties apart with a crowbar, sweating like a goat about to be slaughtered. But the more he hit the tile, the more the ground shook. Suddenly, Nikki appeared wearing a long black dress with a red scarf, barefoot. Her eyes were glowing like burning coal. Her hair was flying around, even though there was no wind. She thundered, "So, you came to destroy what you do not understand. All of you came to die tonight." Her voice was cold enough to freeze boiling water. Chizaram stepped forward, even though her legs felt like noodles. "Return what you took from us. We are ending this today." Nikki laughed slowly, clapping her hands like someone enjoying a Nollywood movie. "You think you have power? Everything you have lost is now mine. Your health, your joy, your future, your destiny. Once your foot entered my shoe, your journey belongs to me. I own your tomorrow." Madam Sheila angrily shouted, "Give me back my bank job and my mattress. I don't want to sell puff-puff, wicked woman." Becky flicked her hand and Sheila flew across the shop, landing on top of a shoe rack like a bird that missed its landing runway. Everyone screamed. Suddenly, Uchenna shouted, "I found it!" He lifted the floor piece, revealing a black black leather shoe buried in the ground, wrapped with heavy chains tied to photographs. It had names written in blood and sand from what looked like a graveyard. It pulsed like a living heart. The shoe began vibrating violently, and voices were crying inside it like souls begging for rescue. Immediately, Uchenna opened a small bottle of petrol and struck a match with shaking hands. Nikki screamed, "Put that down. If you burn it, you burn with it." But before she could move, Amarachi used the last strength in her weak body to crawl forward. She grabbed Nikki's leg and screamed, "You destroyed my life. I won't let you destroy others." Nikki stumbled backward slightly and lost her balance. That moment was all they needed. Chizaram shouted, "Uchenna, now!" Uchenna dropped the lit match onto the shoe. Boom! The shoe exploded in a burst of red flame that shot up like a volcano. The entire shop erupted with screams of voices crying, chains breaking, and wailing like thousands of people being rescued from a prison. The fire rolled like supernatural anger. It burned through shelves and shoes like dry grass. Nikki screamed like a demon being dragged out of hiding. Her legs caught fire first and melted like candle wax. She began staggering and tried to run, but she could not control her feet. It was as if invisible hands were dragging her. Her eyes widened in horror. "No, give them back. Give them back to me." Flames chased her and wrapped around her like a spiritual rope. Smoke filled everywhere, and then, miraculously, the victims felt a sudden rush. Strength returned to their bones like fresh power entering a dead phone battery. Amarachi stood up. Her body became strong again, and her skin glowed like someone who was freshly healed. Sheila felt her breath return. Collins felt his legs strengthen. Chizaram felt peace like cool water poured on fire. While Nikki stumbled out of the burning shop screaming. Her expensive hair was burnt, her dress was torn, and she ran barefoot into the streets wailing and stumbling like a mad woman chased by judgments. The next morning, the market people were shocked to see Nikki's shop completely burned to ashes. More shocking was them seeing her running barefoot and confused. They gathered in pairs speculating, "Is that not Nikki the shoe boss?" Another one asked, "What happened? Why is she running like a criminal?" Someone else exclaimed, "Aha! She's now trekking, Abi. The woman that made others trek has joined the trekking ministry." The crowd watched as she disappeared down the road like a fugitive with no destination. That same morning, miracles continued happening. Amarachi's fiancé came back crying and begging for forgiveness. Sheila received a phone call from the bank. They restored her job with an apology. Collins was offered a new better car by his company. Ogugwa's shop was paid for by an anonymous sponsorship, and Chizaram's scholarship was reinstated with extra allowance. Uchenna cried like a baby after everything. "It is over. The covenant is broken." Weeks later, Nikki was found still wandering barefoot on the streets, dirty and confused, begging for food near the same market she once ruled. And from then on, whenever anyone comes to buy shoes at the markets, the tomato sellers would draw them to one side and warn, "Pray before you put your legs into any shoe. Nikki might have a junior apprentice." Thank you for watching the story. Kindly share your thoughts about the story with me in the comment section. Share the story out with your loved ones and give the story a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye!